Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Manufacturing IT podcast. I'm joined today by Naveen Poonian. Naveen is the CEO and president of iBASEt. Welcome to the podcast, Naveen.
Thanks, Daniel. Glad to be here. Glad to talk about what we're so passionate about, MES.
Yeah, no, definitely, Naveen. And look, great to have you on the podcast. I know you said you've had a busy week, and no doubt president and CEO, it's a full-on role. But for those of you who don't know, who are iBASEt? Maybe you can kind of start there, Naveen.
Sure. So our company has been around for 30 years now. So MES is nothing new to the industry. It's been around for a while, but really where we started is our main goal is to help customers simplify how they build and maintain their products. So from the early founders, company was actually founded by my father in 1986,
Wow.
Turned into a software company in 1995. But the vision has always been around leveraging technology to solve fundamental manufacturing, quality, and sustainment problems. So our customers are using our leading platform, Solumina, to manage their production and sustainment operations through process control, automate engineering change, and really to leverage data to effectively build products right the first time. So when you think about it, our customers are building an F-35 jet or a combustion rocket or a satellite or a turbine or a heavy industrial equipment. And when you think about it, it's thousands of parts, hundreds and thousands of people, global work centers, distributed supply chain, and how do you really orchestrate all these various facets of a business to get a product out quickly, effectively, and with high quality.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And that leads on to the kind of first question, Naveen, really kind of which industries do iBASEt specialize in, and kind of where is your kind of main industry base?
Sure. So we really got our start in aerospace and defense. So on the C-17 program with McDonnell Douglas and then Boeing. So really our pedigree and DNA came from aerospace and defense. But as we were working with these companies, we've really branched out just from aerospace. So really we call it, in broader context, complex discrete manufacturers.
Nice.
So anyone that's producing a highly complex asset, they have the same sets of problems in order to get this product out the door. As I talked about, the complexity is with managing all the people, parts, machines, operations, and really controlling that process. So if you're building a turbine, let's say, or you're building capital equipment like a Caterpillar equipment or John Deere, or a power generator or transformer, what you often see is there's a lot of change and a lot of complexity. You may have a lot of different suppliers, and what they need is to really leverage technology to, one, go digital, so to be able to put data into a system. And really, we've architected a system that knows how to move data around effectively, so you can deliver the right information to the right person at the right time and get that product out the door. So what are those industries? Well, heavy industrial, shipbuilding, obviously aerospace and defense, medical device equipment, complex electronics. So those are the types of customers we work with.
No, really good insight there. I appreciate it, Naveen. And I guess from my side, obviously, I've been involved in MES and from a recruitment perspective for 7 or 8 years. And I guess where my client base and where my time has been spent is in that kind of regulated manufacturing, pharma, biotech, med device a little bit. So I guess on a kind of Venn diagram, I'm over this side and iBASEt here a little bit over that side. And I guess where we kind of meet in the middle is the fact that we kind of both work within that MES space. And how have you seen the kind of market change over the last, 10, 15 years that you've been involved with iBASEt, Naveen?
Sure. So, I think you make a good point there. There's a lot of different MES solutions out there, and they come from different industries, or they fit different industries, right? So you're going to see sometimes different MES solutions for automobile versus for pharma versus for food and process manufacturing. Obviously, we're more focused around complex discrete manufacturing. But one thing that we're seeing with the MES market is we really see that it's finally receiving the credit and importance that it deserves. So a lot of time and effort. I know. We have a colleague who likes to say he's been banging his head against the wall talking about the value of MES, that he now has a flat forehead. And it's one of those things that it's been around for a while, right? So we've been around since the 90s with our product, maybe not as big as it is today and has the robust capabilities as it does today, but it's been around for a while. And really, I think back then, it was really more the visionaries and the people who were the pioneers who could actually see a better future, right? I'm doing things on paper, or I'm doing things in pinpoint solutions. They said, hey, we need to consolidate this. We need a enterprise-wide solution that's going to manage that workflow all the way from concept, how do I take engineering data? How do I put that in a way that's digestible in manufacturing? And then how do I push this out into the value chain? So I think what you're seeing now is with COVID and COVID hitting, it's really accelerated digital transformation in companies across the globe. So this is not just the US. We're seeing it in EMEA. We're seeing it in Asia Pac. Companies have a greater focus. And actually, you're starting to see new titles coming out. So it's no longer a CIO that's at a company looking to make these decisions, but you might actually have a company that has multiple CIOs across different business units. And then you may have an overarching chief digital officer who's thinking about, how do I pull all the business units together? How do I pull engineering and design and manufacturing together, and my supply chain? So there's now this greater focus, I think, towards digital transformation, but more importantly, how do I incorporate all these various parts of an organization? And I think also people are realizing the tremendous value of digitizing manufacturing and sustainment operations. So, there is value in coordinating all your people, parts, design data. And, what we see when we're working with customers, that there's like 1.5% to 3% bottom line profitability increases, which equates to, if you're a $100 million organization or a multi-billion-dollar organization, that's millions, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of hidden waste that's hidden in how you're producing a product. Definitely. And I think also with COVID, people now realize that MES allows for greater agility. So how do I pivot when the market changes with something like COVID-19?
Yeah,
there's going to be other things that are going to happen, but how do I pivot my operations to ensure that I can continue to move forward, despite some of the circumstances and macroeconomic and systematic risks that might pop up. So there could be what we saw was COVID-19. I need to continue to build, but now we're seeing supply chain disruptions as a result of it. So now how do I manage through those supply chain disruptions? And still get that product out the door. So I think that's some of the things we're seeing now, but really happy that MES is the next thing, right? It's ERP, it's PLM, but MES is such a key critical enterprise system. And now the market's starting to realize its importance.
Massively. And I guess, from where I see the market is obviously a slightly different vantage point than yourself, Naveen. But what I see across Europe, North America, Asia Pac as well, is that the demand for MES professionals is relentless. We just, as a company, as a recruitment industry in this space, we just can't keep up with demand. It's a crazy space right now. Everybody seems to be taking on projects for MES or some kind of digital transformation. How are you guys finding the workforce elements of progress? As you say, companies are now catching up to the benefits of digitalization. Companies are now keen to invest. You've got everything in place, but have we got the staff to drive these projects? How are you guys finding that?
So that's a very good point, right? So I think now that people really understand its importance, now there's this constant drive and push towards getting staff that can actually help with these types of implementations. And I think what we've seen is, there has been a lack of training in this area. And so you're starting to see companies struggle, right, to find the right people and to get the right people. So I think it's really important now that we have an ability to train this next generation. And that's going to come from universities. Like we work with Purdue University. We also work with MTC in the UK. How do we start creating programs and create a growth mechanism to start to build that workforce so they can come out of college and go straight into these great jobs, which we need, right? Because at the end of the day, we need to get these products out. And some of these products are critical to our success as humankind, right? These are highly innovative products that drives us into the future. So I think there needs to be a greater focus here on the education and getting people up to speed. But, what you're also seeing is, there's other organizations that understand MES. So it might just be us. We bring people in, we train them. If you know manufacturing, we can teach you MES, right? It's not complicated there. And we're seeing that even with other system integrators and people who are trying to build these books of business, create those programs to get these people in to these companies.
Well, what I was going to add on that, Naveen, is really an interesting one, because when I speak to manufacturers who are looking to hire people for their MES projects, they're keen for them to have that manufacturing background, understand that side of things. But then when I speak to software companies like, iBASEt or other companies, do you want people to have the software skills and then you teach them manufacturing, or would you rather than the manufacturing and you teach them the MES skills? Which side of the coin would you say you were at?
Sure. I think you make a good point. I think you need a little bit of both. So we're a software company, which means, we do need people who understand the technology and they understand the language of what it takes to build. They need to understand things like product management. How do you put the right things in the solution to get out there? But then you also need the domain expertise, right? And what we find is we have to definitely work with these manufacturers because they've been doing things a certain way. So they've been doing it on paper. They've been using Excel spreadsheets, but now you have to change their mind and really have them rethink how to re-engineer their processes for the future. So it's a whole different ballgame there, and sometimes bringing someone from manufacturing who only knows the old way of doing things and not the new way doesn't always help as well. So I think you start to look at that next generation, they all want digital solutions. So they're all hungry for it. They understand when you look at the consumer side of the world, you understand the value of technology when you're going in your iPhone and you're able to download all these apps and, most of your apps are in the cloud, right? All software is starting to move in that direction. So I think it's a combination of both. You have to be able to find the resources that understand the technology, but you have to find those who have some understanding of the domain expertise, but really understand the value of digital, because they're going to be the ones that you put in your own program. They're going to go through it and they're going to say, oh, wow, I get this, I understand this, and now I'm going to go to the customer and really educate and teach them how to leverage and adopt the solution.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And from our side, it's always the question we're always looking to find the answer to with our clients is, where can we make the compromises? Because as far as I understand, there's no formal education around MES. It's hard to get the latest, Gen Z or whatever the term is now for people entering the workforce to get that manufacturing experience, because do many youngsters want to move into manufacturing? Is it sexy enough? Not sure. But from a digitalization perspective, who doesn't have an iPhone or an iPad or something along those lines? So it's about educating that generation into the benefits of supply chain or manufacturing process.
And just to add on that point, that's super important, because if you're not doing this, if you're not investing in the technology as a manufacturer, you're not going to be able to hire this next generation. That's very critical when you start to think about the next 10 years. You have to hire these millennials and Gen Zers and people who are familiar with these types of technologies. That's what excites them. That's what's going to bring them in. And we've talked to some manufacturers and who are looking at how they've done things. it's still on paper, it's still in Excel, and these new people come in saying, what's going on? This is like living in the dark ages, and they want to move on to the next thing. Even though it is really exciting, these products are fantastic, but you still have to merge technology in there and make sure that you're appealing to that next generation.
And I think the industry that you mentioned, obviously discrete complex or complex discrete and manufacturing, a lot of those kind of aerospace or automobile companies that are operating there must have also net carbon footprint or whatever the term is to reducing their carbon footprint. So Gen Z coming in is going to be really interested in understanding their kind of green policies and understanding how they're impacting the environment as well.
And that's important. I think you're starting to see, I think we were just talking earlier, right? The UK is at record heats. We're experiencing record heat over here. So the world is changing. So we have to just be more focused and more careful about, how we're manufacturing or what we're doing and what are the steps we're taking towards sustainability initiatives, right? Digital is one of those things that allows you to do that. And actually, when you think beyond it, so having a digital system, gets you out of paper, gets you out of the things that create that carbon footprint. And everyone wants to be net zero, right? How do I be a very sustainable organization? Digitalization is absolutely key to doing that. And then when you think about, as I talked about, when you're manufacturing, if you have all this waste, if you're building something, you don't build it right, and you have to scrap it and rework it, you're just creating and adding to that carbon footprint. So how do you be as efficient getting those products out the door? And really, when you start to think about it too, in our world, customers are changing their products all the time, right? They want to continuously build it better, build it faster, but innovation is a key component of that. So you start to think of, hey, I have an engine, but I really want to turn that into an electric engine, which is going to help us in the future. But there's so many steps I have to start thinking about and reiterating and redesigning and re-engineering. But how do you make that very efficient? You need these digital systems that really help you manage that process so you can get the product out the door without spending a ton of money on waste and rework and things that are going to leave a heavy carbon footprint. So I think if you have a sustainability initiative, MES falls right into that and digital transformation.
No, definitely. And that kind of speed to value also is a huge point for manufacturers at the moment, isn't it? As I know we mentioned COVID earlier, but in terms of now being able to have a digital workforce as well, who don't need to necessarily be on the shop floor per se all the time, I guess you can increase that time to value with production. And again, that goes to sustainability as well. Yeah,
very good point. Because we're a global workforce now. And if we can do work, and just, a quick story, we have a prospect that we were working with, and they had to they're managing their supply chain. But the way that they're managing their supply chain is they're taking somebody, putting them on a plane, sending them out, manually inspecting a supplier. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Now he's staying in the hotel. He's increasing his carbon footprint, so to speak. And did he really have to fly there when you can actually manage this remotely with the right digital system, working collaboratively with the customer? So it's just, that's the old way of doing things. And as you start to think about, I talk about digital, but even cloud, right? Cloud adoption, it's allowing for greater collaboration. You're able to have an ecosystem and a workspace that you can work really well together. I think that's where things are moving towards now, and that's only going to be better, for the environment.
I mean, it's a really interesting point you make about that kind of potential client you were looking at. And I guess from our side and what we're seeing in the market now is that in this post-COVID era, most candidates now we're working with don't want to travel either. They don't want to jump on the plane to fly somewhere for meetings. And what we're seeing is the companies that are hiring, that are stealing the competitive edge, are the ones that are now really kind of driving those online meetings and driving the kind of less face-to-face meetings. And that's going to increase adoption for staff joining the business as well, and that kind of side of things.
Yeah, that definitely, we're a global environment now. Yeah, it's going to be a hybrid work environment. I think for the future, right? People will realize that in this type of environment we can work like this, And once again, you see the power of Zoom and Teams and the ability to collaborate. The same goes for how you collaborate with a supplier, right? Maybe you're meeting them on Teams, but how do you know what work they're doing? How do you know how do you maintain quality at a supplier, right? And how do you do that in a digital way, and create essentially the business logic that's going to allow you to work more effectively with your supply chain? These are really important, and we've evolved working with our customers, ensuring that we can do that, because we see that's the way forward, right? It needs to be digital. It's really important. Doesn't mean you don't see them face to face. You don't have a client meeting and you go to dinner and have a beer together. That's still extremely important, but you don't need to do it all the time.
What makes sense to me. And one of the things I was going to ask, I don't know if you saw recently, but I put a poll out on LinkedIn. It was, what's the future of MES? And there was one option for monolithic system. There was one for modular MES, kind of the no code, low code. There was another one for, IoT based systems. And I wanted to ask you about where you see the future of MES, because it must be a number of your clients are defense and kind of discrete manufacturing providers. Are they really driving to kind of cloud adoption? Are they happy to have their data and their stuff in the cloud, or are they kind of pulling back from that and keen to maintain ownership over that? What are you seeing as the kind of future for MES, but also with your clients in mind?
Sure. So there's a few things that we're seeing. One, there is a bigger push towards COTS. So an off-the-shelf solution, right? I want an application product that's configurable. When you look at MES, it's been very customized, right? So a lot of people have either, brought in people to customize code, or a lot of the solutions out there, they have a base capability with a lot of code that's built on top. What that means is there's a lot of technical debt that starts to accumulate. And oftentimes it might only be one or two people that know what was in there and what was coded. And so that doesn't bode well for scale, right? Especially if they win the lottery and then they're out of there, right? So what you do see is this push towards an off-the-shelf solution, an out-of-the-box solution. And when you look at something like Salesforce, right, they have the business logic, they have the capabilities, and it's configurable. So I configure it to my process. That's how we view the world of MES as well, right?
Okay.
We want to make sure that we have that business logic and capability, but we also build in the flexibility of how you build your process, execute through the process, the data that you're collecting. You need to define it for your work environment. So that's where a lot of focus has been for us. I think, and other MES providers as well, I think that's where the focus is going to be, for those other companies as well, and for the market. Also, I think what's important is when you start thinking about MES, it's the partner ecosystem. So it's really not about just one product or company. So, okay, I've chosen iBASEt to deliver their Solumina platform. Great, but I want to integrate to my PLM system, whether it's Windchill or Teamcenter. How do I integrate and leverage all that great data that's coming from PLM? How do I integrate to ERP and make sure that I'm connected to SAP or, Infor-LN or a Deltek or, any IFS, any number of solutions that are out there, make sure that I'm coordinating effectively. So what you're seeing now is this concept of digital thread is becoming more prevalent, which means I want all my systems to work collaboratively. And so architecting a solution that can do those handshakes with other systems. So, we're open APIs. APIs is, the future. So we can make sure that we have a great base system, but you can create these connections without breaking anything. It doesn't require a bunch of custom code. And it's also not just, MES. It's once again, it's those other products that you're putting in, because IoT, right? IoT is fantastic. IoT is actually really good layered on top of MES, right? Because you start to think of the edge technology, sensors, and pulling in that data. Where are you going to put it? It fits perfectly within MES, right? There's certain things, let's say, we're not going to do, but machines and sensor data are going to collect and do. But you want to make sure you can pull that in and also deliver any of that data as needed to, let's say, PLM, so they can create better designs. And also, how do you scale? So it's not just about products, it's also about people, right? So this is where you need to bring in system integrators like an Accenture or a DXC or an HCL or an Infosys or any of these number of companies, an ATS. How do you bring these companies together to help you to deploy your solution effectively and scale it globally? Because sometimes, operations are global. And then cloud adoption is, in our world, aerospace and defense, they said, no. But after COVID, they're saying, oh my gosh, so we need to go. So you look at, and what we're seeing is more, maybe Azure Secure Cloud or AWS Gov Cloud. And, we see a greater push than we've seen before. And actually, when you start to think about agility, scalability, security, they're starting to realize that it is more secure than a private cloud or an on-premise data center. Because once that gets compromised, then what? Then what are you going to do, right? So CIOs are starting to change their mentality about that. And then, what we're also seeing in MES is it's not just the enterprise, a big OEM solution. It's going down into the supply chain as well. So the market demand is expanding and existing. So we have customers who are saying, hey, I liked MES. I had it in 20 sites, but now I want to go full blown enterprise. I need to expand it across all my business units, across all my plants and facilities. And then I want to have this one data strategy, right? And then you're starting to see supply chain, right? So you think an OEM might have thousands of suppliers, but they're so critical on those suppliers to supply the components. So now they're saying, hey, you guys need to get your act together. You guys need to invest in a digital system. And actually those that do allows them to have, they can be more competitive in bidding for business with a large OEM.
Oh, it's a really interesting insight you give, Naveen, and I really appreciate you speaking candidly there and really kind of opening up on what you're seeing and some of the different thoughts that you have on that space. It's really interesting to share this. What I wanted to kind of maybe towards the end of the episode now talk about is a little bit about yourself. I know you've been with the business a number of years. You mentioned it was your father who founded the business. So,
Sure.
For those kind of looking at you, for example, 17 years, give or take with iBASEt, your journey to CEO, president now, what kind of words of wisdom would you give somebody looking to start their career within manufacturing, within software, within MES, who kind of maybe have a career path like yourself who would be interested in, can you share words of wisdom on that?
Sure. So, my father started the company. So obviously he bootstrapped it as a telecommunications company, saw the inefficiency on the shop floor, and decided that, hey, there's a problem here and we need to solve it. And then I think I can solve it by building a team together and effectively going to market. I think manufacturing is one of those things that it's so critical, right? You need manufacturing to build products. And it can be extremely exciting, right? So some people might not understand, but when you get to work with amazing companies like a Virgin Orbit, that was a pre-revenue company. It was an idea by Richard Branson writing on a napkin saying, hey, let's remove an engine and let's put a rocket and let's do low Earth satellite launches, right, from a 747 aircraft. I mean, whoa, what is that? But to be able to come up with that idea, turn it from to a prototype and now to a product, extremely exciting. And also what you're seeing is like this new market, electronic vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, right? So air taxis, once again, electric, highly sustainable, better for our future. But I was just driving back from LAX, the traffic was insane. And I was thinking, man, I'd love to get on a Lilium jet and just be able to go up and get to Orange County quickly, effectively. But you're seeing all these great new products come to market. Electrification is just, one of those key things that are happening. So I think And then for me, I came in out of college, worked with the company, learned about the business. I think manufacturing is fantastic. You have to understand how a business runs, right? You have to understand how a software company runs. So in my case, I even worked in QA, I worked in IT, I worked in marketing, I worked in sales, before I eventually became CEO, right? I had to understand the business. How does it function? What are those decisions you need to make to eventually assume a role like a CEO position? But I think what came out of all of this is if you have the mindset and the desire, you're very capable of getting there. And I don't know if you know also about the company, but after my father passed in '98, my mother came in and she was a nurse, right? So she was a full-time nurse in a high-risk obstetrics and had her midwifery. And she came into a tech business as a tech CEO and ran the company for 25 years. So, so that's like a completely different story. But, once again, if you have the perseverance and you care about your customers, you care about your people, you'll always find a way to make it happen. And I think that's the key thing. And really, we need this next generation to get excited about the future, right? Yeah. And I think the products that can come out can really drive where we go as a world, right? And so those who take a focused effort on manufacturing and understanding that they can be part of bringing great products to the market, I think we're starting to see that resurgence happen. I know there's been a lot of people who want to be social media influencers and things like that. And, I think that's all good. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to build products that moves us into the next generation. And I think it's up to us as a CEO and even you having this podcast, talking about the industry. I think this is all great stuff to start to inspire that next generation. And have them understand they can be part of something fantastic and great. And in our case, we're working with multiple customers that are amazing and producing amazing products. And I think we're very fortunate to actually be able to work with all these different companies, all these people, and really get exposed to how the world is changing one product at a time.
I think that's a great way to finish the podcast. I think it's a really good point you make. And I guess this is one of the really exciting things that I see is that, we're really at the vanguard of the future of manufacturing, and that's across different industries, different products, different, evolutions of technology. So it's just a fascinating space to be in. But I appreciate you're a busy guy. So thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you highlighting the importance of MES, and I think you're going to be pretty busy coming the next 3 to 5 years. So
I hope so.
Keep it up.
Thank you. Cheers, Naveen.
Thank
Bye.
You.